Do you love a good story? Her American Story is a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. First and second generation American women share their American experience. Sharing our stories helps us to relate to one another, build understanding, as well as provide representation for those that need it most. I grew up in a smaller American town and lacked representation in my community and simply in media at that time. I created something I wanted to hear. I hope this podcast reaches those that need it most, as well as serves as a collection of simply interesting stories. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at HerAMStory. Everyone has a story. Share yours with me. Email me at heramericanstory@gmail.com.
This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hey everyone, you're wasting time with Chris, Beth, and Matt. My name is Chris Williams. With me as always are
Matt. December.
All right, that's great. Yeah.
Beth Golpe, hi.
Yeah. It is weird that we are saying our last names. People could just, you guys, they could find pretty easily. Me, Chris Williams, is like the most common name in the world.
Yeah,
there's about 4,000 of you.
So, how are you guys?
I'm hanging in there. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good.
Recording this on the verge of the first big snowstorm since November. So
Yeah, true.
It's anxiety producing.
Looking forward to my drive home in the snow. I don't think it's supposed to start till after midnight.
No, it's like 3 a.m. or 1 a.m. or something. It's supposed to start, yeah.
Right,
crossing my fingers that, what are you pulling on my shoelace?
Because it's funny. It's distracting in a way.
I'm
that
sure
I find
all the
amusing.
listeners love that all the listener love that. But, no, I'm really hoping my snowblower works tomorrow morning. Matt, you have a nice condo.
I don't have to worry about it. Somebody cleans up for me.
Beth, you have a husband.
So
And,
you
we collectively hold our breath for the snowblower. It's always like, does it have gas? Doesn't it have gas? Do we need to go get gas? Like, I just feel like it's a constant thing.
I tested mine out in November, so it should work.
I like the snow. My dog is happier. My kids love playing in the snow. I actually love
cute.
playing in the snow with my kids. Like,
that's cute.
getting all bundled up takes a long time. And it makes them really tired.
Uh-huh.
So I love it. I'm like,
nice,
let's do it. We went sledding when it the last time it snowed.
Mm-hmm.
The big snow.
Yeah.
And then we've had a couple of teeny snows where it just sort of covers the grass. And even then we'll drag out the sleds because it's like all you have to do is get it down a little hill.
Yeah.
So I'm like really looking forward to it.
Well, good.
Yeah,
good.
I love the snow.
Yeah, I'm excited to get, I think I'm going to go to Sarah's for the weekend and get snowed in and
Aww,
just hang out.
Make soup.
Yeah, she bought a bunch of groceries today. And
Nice. You know what sounds good? A nice sausage and potato spicy like soup,
like
a
kind of a creamy
lentil
little soup.
Yeah, like a zuppa toscana, like a nice,
that does sound good.
like a lentil.
Sarah, I hope you bought all that stuff so we
Sarah?
can make it.
You know she did. She's
This
the
is
best.
going to air like 2 weeks after the snow.
She's the best. So you've already enjoyed. You have a nice warm belly full of
Hopefully
soup.
there's another snowstorm in the next 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to being snowed in with my kids who get tired after 5 minutes in the snow and want to come in. So we are just making sure Disney Plus is loaded up and the gates down to divide the house into kids section of the house, adult section of the house, and I'll sit down with a book while they watch whatever is on Disney Plus. And
That sounds good too.
Yeah.
it is.
Sounds delightful.
But I'm in a great mood because it's my favorite episode.
I love this episode. We have such good favorites today.
Yes, we do.
I'm
We have
really
great
excited.
favorites, as always. And it is the 5-year anniversary thereabout of our first actual It's My Favorite podcast
Aw,
episode.
Wow,
you
that's
guys.
Now defunct podcast, which has transformed into this really
Professional,
efficient, professional, dynamic,
Dynamic. Yeah.
really professional. I really
That
love
should have
it.
been my 2020 word.
Yeah, dynamic. Yeah.
Dynamic professional.
Well, who wants to start on favorites?
I'll start.
Okay.
I'm really excited. So, it came out at the end of November, but I just saw this film a couple weeks ago with a couple girlfriends. Knives Out, directed by Ryan Johnson. It's a sort of Agatha Christie style mystery about the Thrombey family, starring just a whole myriad of wonderful celebrities like Jamie Lee Curtis and Daniel Craig and the Captain America, Chris
Evans.
Chris Evans, that's right. Toni Collette. Christopher Plummer, who I just adore. Michael Shannon, who's one of my very odd-looking boyfriends. I just love him.
You do like how weird he looks.
I do.
Yeah.
I love how weird he looks. He's such a strange-looking person. And then I would say star of the movie is Ana de Armas.
Yes.
Who is actually from the new Blade Runner, that like Ryan Gosling Blade Runner. She's like his robot girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
she's
cute.
so pretty. But she's very charming and quiet in this film. But
the way a woman should be.
Exactly. Seen and not heard.
We're shaking hands. Over
But the reason, so this fits with my theme for December and going into January. My theme for consumption of pop culture and media is that it has to be fun and it has to be escapist for me to watch it. That's just sort of the mood I'm in, and it kind of feels like the world is on fire, and I'm really just trying to find some respite in mediums that make me feel good. And when I was at this movie, I found myself like grinning the whole time. I was trying to figure out who done it. The acting was so fun. The sort of mood of the film and like the cinematography, I guess I would say, is really charming and mysterious and kind of like kitschy. And I just thought it was a good time. Like, I felt like all the actors were having a good time. I was having a good time. Like, it just was fun for me to watch and made me feel good. And I think that I don't say that about a lot of movies. So what did you guys think? Did anyone else see it?
I saw it.
Okay.
I saw it. I've seen this twice. This is the only movie of last year that was at least in my top 10 list that I saw twice. So I actually watched this the same day that they released the trailer for the new James Bond movie.
Okay.
And so I watched the trailer for the James Bond movie, and then later in the day I watched Knives Out on a screener that I had at home. And my thought as soon as Knives Out ended was, I cannot wait for Daniel Craig to be done with James Bond so he can just make Benoit Blanc movies for the rest of his career. It is a blast. It ended up being, I think, number 6 on my top 10 list that year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It was a movie that Kelly and I had a weekend at home without kids. And she's like, well, what should we watch? And I was like, immediately pull out Knives Out. I'm like, you got to see this. It's so much fun.
It's a perfect movie to watch with your spouse, for sure.
It is such a fun movie. It is the most fun I had watching a movie last year.
Wow.
Maybe aside from Parasite, which is a totally different kind of enjoyment. But I love it. It's a really fun mystery, but it's not what you expect. Structurally, it kind of changes things up and kind of goes into some different directions that like shocked me or surprised me that I didn't expect the movie was going to take this approach. And I'm kind of treading lightly because I know, Matt, you have not seen it.
I didn't see it.
So there was no spoilers there. I think Daniel Craig is so much fun. I love his little foghorn leghorn accent. He has a monologue where he talks about a donut hole. And it is the funniest thing because it's such an absurd complex, but also it makes perfect sense in the context. Ana de Armas is great. I love that. Like you said, it's just fun. It is a movie. I laughed the last 20 minutes of the movie. I was cackling and slapping my knees because everything was just making me so delighted. Like that whole ensemble.
It is like delightful is such a good word. It's like it was just so much fun.
But what I like, and you mentioned like escapist. It's actually though. It's a fun movie. It's always very entertaining, but it's very political. There's a very blatant political subtext to it that is basically boiling down to white people suck.
Yeah.
But I like that it's not, all the people who it's kind of pointing the fingers at, they're on various sides politically, and it's really a message more about the importance of being just a kind, good person, which just makes it that much more delightful. It's funny. It surprised me. Chris Evans is a lot of fun playing just a real jackass. And
I thought he specifically was like having a good time. You could tell.
Toni Collette plays basically Gwyneth Paltrow, which is making me laugh. Yeah, it is a delight of a movie. I had a wonderful time, and I'm so glad that it was a giant hit. And they're making a sequel, and yeah, I could watch Benoit Blanc movies for a while, and so I'm very excited about it. Matt, you should definitely see it.
I wanted to go see it, but I didn't get invited to...
It was girls only, but did Sarah love it? I'm sure she did.
She did really like it.
Yeah.
So, I wish that I knew somebody who owned a physical copy of it that they could have loaned to me.
I brought it.
I don't own a physical copy. I have a screener that I could go to jail for bringing along. I forgot to bring it. But no, it is a lot of fun. Definitely check it out. Actually, I would say run it when it comes out. Give this movie some money. This movie deserves it.
It's a great on-demand 48-hour screener.
Yeah, is it on demand yet?
No, because we just saw it in theaters a couple of weeks ago. But
I'm sure in the next few months it will be. Rian Johnson's just so good. I love his Star Wars movie. I love The Last Jedi. I love his work on Breaking Bad. I like Looper a lot. He's just a really fun
the style of this movie is great. I really was very charmed by the whole thing. I think Christopher Plummer's like a very charming man. So
Christopher Plummer's very good at it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, everyone go see it. Hooray!
Okay, if I can get someone to go with me, I will.
Okay.
Go see it again.
Yeah, I'll see it again.
Okay.
Take Chris.
Oh, your
my
husband?
Oh.
You don't need to see it a third time, Williams.
I could go home and watch it a third time.
Yeah, it is so good.
Matt, what about you? What do you got?
So my favorite is the Netflix original American fantasy drama series, The Witcher. You may or may not know this is based on a book series by the same name. It's written by Andrzej Sapkowski. Sapkowski? Yeah, that's right.
A Polish author.
He's a Polish man. This was released in its entirety at the end of December. I watched it. I didn't rush right into watching it, but once I did turn it on, I watched it fairly quickly. I think it was only 8 episodes.
But they were healthy hour-long episodes.
Yeah, they were all about an hour, at least, I think. And of course, it stars Henry Cavill. Is that his name?
Cavill.
Cavill? No, I don't think so.
Cavill.
Henry Cavill. And then some other people whose names I don't know. Anya Chalotra.
Pretty much just him.
Priya Allen. Yeah, so essentially it's a medieval fictional world. And the story follows, he's a monster hunter. Henry Cavill's character, is it Geralt?
Geralt. Yeah.
It's funny because I didn't know how it was pronounced, and then I was watching it, and I was like, oh, obviously. And now that I haven't watched it in a week, it's like I totally forgot.
I'm reading the book, so I have to keep reminding myself how. Geralt.
And then it follows him, and then a sorcerer by the name of Yennefer, and then also a girl, Ciri, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of is following their 3 individual stories, and then as they all get tied together, it's okay. It's good. It's weird. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's a very high production. I've heard it compared kind of to Game of Thrones because it's like a medieval fantasy, and so that's would be a popular comparison to make, I guess. But to me, I compare it, in my mind as I was watching it, even though I was enjoying it, and it's going to sound like a knock on it. To me, it reminded me more of like Hercules or like Xena, Warrior Princess.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that's a knock. Those are pretty great early 90s, late 80s fantasy shows.
I guess that depends on how you ask, I suppose. So it's like one of those, but high, the higher production value and better special effects, and no Kevin Sorbo, so whatever that's worth to you. And so the plot in this one is presented very kind of oddly, which I don't know if this helped the show or not. I think it maybe confused some viewers.
Like everyone that I talked to, but it's like, give me a break, stretch your brain a little bit.
So the story's kind of told out of sequence in a way. I don't think that's a spoiler, but because I think you figure it out fairly early on.
There's 3 different timelines going on all at the same time.
Yeah, and you're kind of bouncing between characters along these timelines, and then
it's confusing because the Witcher and the Sorceress do not age.
Yes.
So you don't you can't tell by how old they are what
how
period
much time has passed or where when they're.
So you have to look at the ancillary characters to kind of see where the time is.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of cool and like a fun thing to pay attention to. But I did find a lot of people saying after 1 or 2 episodes that they stopped watching it entirely because they were like, this is too weird. And I have like a lot of people that I have talked to about it literally were like, I had no idea what was going on. None. Which I'm like, well, I think it was a little easier to follow than that. Like each episode is sort of like its own mini story, kind of like Mandalorian. Each episode was like a mini story, and then it's like arcing toward a greater plot throughout the whole series.
There's like a monster of the week kind of a thing going on.
But I also thought that the once you realized like, oh, this happened, this actually happened 20 years before this thing happened. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it doesn't like, I don't know. I started watching it again, and it's kind of cool to see. Yeah. So I don't know. I really liked it, obviously.
Yeah, you liked it. I think you liked it more than I did. I liked it. I thought I liked the combat. The sword fighting is all fun, and the monsters are very well designed, and they're very cool looking. And I like the sorceress stuff is cool, and I like the, just a normal, it had the whole, angle that I fall for all the time, which is just, a normal, homely looking girl can just be, becomes just a total, babe sorceress, and, banging the steamy hot witcher. So it's that does sound like your kind of thing.
It's...
I mean, I think it's, it was enjoyable, but there was just something about it to me that felt a little flat, and I don't know how to describe what it was. I think some of it felt like there's some real world building going on, or at least they're trying to, and like any show like that, and some of it works better than some of it works better than other parts of it, and
I just am finishing the first book. The Last Wish, and it's so hard. It's like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter too, where it's like there's so much going on in this world, and then they sort of have to pick for Netflix what they're going to include and what they're not going to include, and then some of the stuff they pick is good to include, and some of the stuff is just confusing, and maybe they shouldn't have included it at all because it just adds to the confusion. But I will say in the book, the timeline is it's the same. It's all jumbled up.
Oh, really?
So that wasn't a choice.
That wasn't like a Netflix choice. That was in the book. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Which is kind of cool, and also way harder to decipher in the book.
Yeah, you don't have the visual clues to work from.
So if I didn't know, I wouldn't have been able to pick it up if I didn't know from the show.
That makes sense.
But I think that if you like fantasy drama and sort of high fantasy nerd stuff, that you would enjoy it. I really, really liked it.
Yeah. Chris, you haven't seen any of it?
No.
It's not your jam, really, fantasy at all?
No, fantasy is not really my thing. Kelly and I tried Game of Thrones, and it stuck with her, and she's been watching a little bit of The Witcher. But it's really... kind of just a genre I'm not usually into, although I like Lord of the Rings a lot. Your description of it is kind of a Xena Hercules show, though. I kind of am intrigued by that, because here's the thing, I understand what you're saying, you don't mean it as a knock, because that was actually some episodes of The Mandalorian I would describe as very Xena or Hercules-esque.
Okay, I can see that, yeah.
And I didn't mean that as a knock, it was just it's just they venture into this town, they help these people... and then they leave and they go on to their next adventure.
Yeah. And, Monster of the Week is a good description of it, because it's literally with The Witcher, he's just stumbles into monsters or goes to a town looking for a monster for money. And that's how the book is structured too, where he just sort of is the thing that I liked about, that I took from the book that I like about the show too, is they give The Witcher sort of a the One Ring vibe, where he magically draws trouble to him, That's sort of in the book.
Oh,
That's why
really?
like nobody wants him around, and every time a Witcher goes to a town, they're like, "Get out of here," because he kind of draws trouble to him magically,
that's
which
kinda
I thought was cool.
Yeah,
and
that
it
is
kind
cool.
of explains why they don't, he's kind of unwelcome everywhere he goes.
That's funny because that's not obvious in the show. That's not explained in the show, but that makes a lot of
yeah,
that makes a
and
lot of
it's
sense.
cool.
That is a cool. That's cool. I do like that. Yeah,
I do like Henry Cavill a lot, though. As
he's
much as I,
very
What a
likable.
dork! He is so cute.
He is
I love
very
him.
likable.
As much as I disliked Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Justice League, I liked him, and I was really disappointed we never got to really see what he could do as Superman. But I really, really liked him in the last Mission Impossible. Was it Fallout? I think that was the last
Fallout.
one.
I think
They all blur together after a bit, but he was a lot of fun in that. So
I, by coincidence, had just watched Fallout the day before I started watching The Witcher. I didn't even remember that he was in Fallout. And then I'm like, oh, this is so funny! Like, what a goofy mustache! And he looks so funny in like pedestrian clothes.
Yeah.
And then I watched Witcher the next day. Started watching it. But I'm going to tell you, if you're really looking for his acting prowess, you're not going to find it in The Witcher either. It's mostly the wig that's doing all the talking.
He's doing a lot of work.
And he does a lot of his biggest line of dialogue is
Yes.
So he doesn't do a lot of talking.
he's playing Cookie Monster.
He's got a very.
I watch it with
odd voice.
Cookies.
subtitles on. It's very Batman. It's very like who does this?
Oh, Christian Bale.
Yeah, Christian Bale Batman voice.
Yeah.
Swear to me.
It's not that bad, but I watch it with I watch it with the subtitles on, and it was a lot of.
Oh yeah.
So, anyways, watch The Witcher if you're into that sort of thing. The soundtrack is also great. I've been like listening to the soundtrack because I really like the music from the show.
You just like that one song about giving
No,
tossing coin to your Witcher.
I actually so I love that song.
It's
So
very
does
catchy.
everyone else.
So
I just
very-
a headline on my phone was just that Elon Musk has had it in his head for a week and he's he can't get it out of his head.
I believe it.
It's an earworm. But the rest of the soundtrack is great, and also the graphic novel and the books are very.
You have a graphic novel too?
Look, I maybe have just flipped through.
Have you played the video games?
No, Chris has, and or maybe he was saying Henry Cavill has.
Oh, Henry Cavill.
Well,
that's a big difference, but yeah, Henry Cavill has. Yes.
Maybe Chris was talking about Henry Cavill having talking about playing.
Yeah,
it.
he had to.
Oh,
play.
okay.
Yeah, I think they're filming season 2 presently. I
Yes,
think.
this is true, and I saw that it was had just beat The Mandalorian in its success
What?
I don't think that's true.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
in like most times viewed or whatever.
I find that hard to believe.
No, I swear, I saw
Don't
a
look it up.
headline.
Don't
I'm
look
not.
it up.
You, Chris, you talk about your favorite, and I'm gonna look this up.
All right, because I just read a thing that Disney Plus was the most downloaded app last year, so I'm seriously doubting that Henry Cavill outdrew Baby Yoda, but maybe.
I mean, they do have a higher install base.
Now, what I will say though
what will you
is
say?
you had to wait every week to see an episode of The Mandalorian. If a lot of people were downloading episodes of The Witcher, which have multiple episodes on day one,
Yeah,
that could skew the numbers a bit.
I guess.
So,
Yeah. So what's your
The
favorite?
Witcher passed The Mandalorian as the biggest TV show in the world,
Based on what?
based on Business Insider's article headline.
okay.
All right, you keep looking.
I'm guessing there's some nuance in there.
Yeah.
But I'll go next because mine is also a kind of nerdy TV show property. So I kind of spent this last week trying to dig myself out of the big TV hole I was in. All the unwatched shows. Which, by the way, when I wasn't here, you guys talked about Righteous Gemstones, which I just want to also follow up and say totally agree with that pick. That was one of my favorite shows last year.
Yes, did we all watch it?
Yeah.
Love
So
Righteous Gemstones.
good.
I think it was my favorite show of 2019.
that you have to know the sister from Righteous Gemstones is in Knives Out.
Yes, she is.
And
Oh my
You
god!
watch
I
it.
have to go see this
She's
movie.
so good.
She's so funny. All right, sorry. So go ahead.
So I was like, HBO didn't fail me on that. I'll see what other show I'm still behind on HBO. And I was 3 episodes into Watchmen when I got totally just slammed with schoolwork, and I stopped watching. And the show subsequently ended, and I had a backlog of about 6 episodes to watch. Watchmen is, of course, David Lindelof's take on the classic graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. It was made into a 2009 movie by Zack Snyder that isn't great, but was probably about as well as you could do adapting
that's
into
a
a
tough
2-hour movie.
Yeah.
So I guess this debuted last October, I think. Are we okay?
Yeah.
We're just looking for chapstick.
Okay, I kind of got distracted.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll just take a break and I'll take a pause.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
Sorry, listeners. My lips are chapped.
So the show debuted in October, and I was really excited about it because I was a pretty big Damon Lindelof fan after Lost, which we've talked about on this podcast before, with Matt's refusal to watch it. But I was really curious what he was going to do with Watchmen because there wasn't a lot of information out about whether this was an adaptation, whether this was a reboot, and it turns out it's a sequel that takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about 30 years after the events of the graphic novel. It opens with a race riot that really happened in Tulsa that a lot of people, including myself, were unaware of, which it kind of brought to light. And then it kind of just observes the current state of things where costumed heroes have been outlawed. The police wear masks to protect their identities. There is a group of white supremacists planning something. Some of the police have taken to wearing costumes. One of them is Sister Knight, played by Regina King. And Looking Glass, played by the wonderful Tim Blake Nelson.
Oh, Tim Blake Nelson is great.
And it starts kicking off with, there is the murder of a police chief. There is this white supremacist group that is kind of appropriating the look and some of the ethos of Rorschach from the comics. And then there's Jeremy Irons as someone who you later learn is Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias from the comics. And he's doing something off in his own little corner of the universe that isn't really even explained until episodes in. I don't want to explain too much because if people haven't watched this, the entire series is up there, and it is the series. They're not making more of it as of now.
Did you guys kind of breathe a sigh of relief when you saw that they weren't making another? How did you feel?
Yeah. Well, I'll get to that. Okay. Yeah, the entire series is up there on HBO. And Beth, to your point, when it finished, yeah, I as soon as I saw the last shot of the show, I was like, they better not make any more of this. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of getting that feeling. I was telling you this, Matt, as I was emailing you this week.
Yeah.
That I was getting that feeling as it was, as the show was continuing. Because at first, it opens with a lot of questions, and you're not really sure, why is this a Watchmen sequel? Because there's no characters from the comic books in it, and there's kind of tangential references to the things in the comic books. But as the story keeps going, it starts bringing in characters from the comics who are a little older now. It starts having plot points that are directly referencing events in the graphic novel. In many ways, it feels like a conversation with the graphic novel, where there are plot points in this that really echo things that happen. So it kicks off with a murder investigation. There is this whole subtext of superheroes wearing masks as kind of a response to personal trauma. There is a supervillain who has a really crazy sci-fi plan to end or save the world that is kind of revealed at the last minute, which is all stuff that happens in the graphic novel. But then it adds all this stuff in about racism and cultural appropriation and whose stories are we telling and who gets to tell the stories. And it feels like this closed, very focused thing that Damon Lindelof wanted to make. He said in interviews that he basically put every idea he had about Watchmen into this and doesn't feel he has anything else to say, and that he was terrified about telling this story as it was because he's like, I'm a white man, why should I be telling this story? What gives me that right? Mm-hmm. But he ended up saying something I thought was very resonant and very important, especially in this day and age. It's fantastic. I don't know how much to say and how much not to say. We could go full spoilers or anything because you guys have all seen it.
Right.
But Beth, to answer your question, when it hit the last shot of the show, I was like, it kind of echoes the end of Inception, is the way it felt to me. Was like, it could play out one of two ways, and it's not going to give you that answer. And the fact that it doesn't give you that answer is better than seeing what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want more, but I'm glad we got what we got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I didn't want another season because I just thought there was no I didn't want a continuation of this story. If someone, I think at this point that HBO said they're not going to move forward without Lindoff, whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody had come and said, well, we'll do an anthology type series, where we pull from different, we pull on different threads from the original comic, and I would have been like, okay, but this story itself I felt was pretty tightly closed up that we didn't really need to explore it any further. So I'm glad that we're not doing that. I thought it was great. I thought there was a couple episodes in the middle. I thought how many episodes were there? 9?
9 episodes.
I thought the last 6 episodes were all very good to very great television.
I agree.
I thought the first 3 episodes were pretty good, but it's setting up a lot, and I don't think they really are quite as good as the rest of the season. But they're good. I mean, it's compelling. It's compelling television. But there's 2 episodes specifically kind of in the middle there. One that's in black and white, and one that follows one of the major characters from the comic books that does some,
and they're right after each other.
Right, yeah, one right after the other. And they were, really just very well done. Just so good. I mean, as good as anything I think I've ever seen on TV, honestly.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah, I don't know so much to say without really getting into the plot. I think it's really worth watching if you haven't seen it.
Do you think people should see it, watch it if they aren't familiar with the
comic?
Or
the movie? I guess the movie.
Because I haven't read the comic, but I've seen the movie.
Yeah,
loved the movie. I have watched it several times.
Yeah, it's close enough that you could just
I
have
didn't
with that.
really.
I don't know. I guess some of mostly I think it's okay. There's a couple of things that may not, some of the plot may seem a little confusing. No sense of why certain things are happening, I guess. Or why certain people are important or not important. So I don't know. I guess maybe not.
Because I was thinking about it while I was watching it, and I'm very pleased with its popularity and how good it was. And when I was watching it, I kept thinking, wow, what a sort of refreshingly bizarre and daring sort of show. Because I felt like you probably wouldn't get as much out of it if you hadn't seen the movie at least. Because you would be kind of lost especially with sort of Jeremy Irons stuff. And then you're sort of your demographic then of people that are going to watch your show shrinks down. But I'm if people loved it, it was sort of all over the podcasts and stuff that I listened to, and even some more mainstream stuff, people were talking about it. So I was good, because it was I thought super weird in a really cool way. And
it's a very weird show.
I was happy.
It was a huge hit for HBO, who is kind of looking for. We don't have Game of Thrones.
Right.
It's 2 years before the next Game of Thrones thing starts for them. So I'm surprised they didn't renew it just based on, this was a hit for us and we kind of need this hit.
Yeah.
So, brave of them. This is a weird show. This has Gene Smart with a giant blue dildo that you don't understand if you have not read the comic book.
Yeah.
It's a weird show. I almost think if you haven't read the graphic novel and you've only seen the movie, you might be more confused just because the movie ends much different than the graphic novel ends. But the show really depends on that graphic novel ending with the squid and everything.
Yeah, but I think it's close enough that you would
get the broad strokes. I think you appreciate it more if you've seen read the graphic novel or seen the movie. But I do think in the back stretch they explain enough that you can kind of follow a little bit. Like, you can piece it together. And
Yeah, you're right. I think it's explained, but yeah, that requires you to get quite a bit into the season.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to commit to watching the whole thing for all the pieces to come together.
Beth, you watched The Leftovers, didn't you?
I loved Leftovers.
Okay, how does this... I know this is probably not as depressing as The Leftovers, which sounds like it was a very sad show.
Yeah.
But, I mean, same guy, Damon Lindelof. How's this compared to that?
Oh, I would say it compares. There's sort of a very similar... Man, that's funny. I guess I didn't put those pieces... I didn't connect those two dots. But The Leftovers has a very similar, so bizarre and so melancholy, but so watchable. And like, it sort of had the same effect on me where I just wanted to keep watching it. It was like, no matter how weird and sad it got, I just had to like know what happened. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. I think I want to go back and watch The Leftovers.
Oh, it was so cool. The end, it gets just so crazy, it's like this, like it gets so crazy at the end that you're like, where did we even begin? Like, all right, it's cool. It's very cool. I was really has a cool religious, thing going on with it in Leftovers, and very, a lot of cult stuff, which I also like really find fascinating. So
I have to check that out. Mm-hmm. I was really happy that Damon Lindelof kind of nailed this, and especially nailed the ending, because I'm one of the few defenders of the Lost finale. And even I would say I understand the problems people have with it, and they are welcome to have those problems. I get it. But I appreciated the Lost finale. But he got so pilloried for that. He had to leave Twitter because people were so obnoxious to him. And I'm glad he came back and did The Leftovers, because he also did Prometheus, which is a movie I really don't like.
It's my husband's favorite movie of all time.
It disappointed me. He scripted that. He scripted the J.J. Abrams Star Trek too, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
It's fine. I like that one. I think
that's fine. Yeah.
But I'm glad that with The Leftovers and Watchmen, he just is kind of like doing fantastic TV. Also, Jean Smart. I didn't call it Jean Smart on this, who is so much fun to watch in this.
Yeah, she's very good.
And the way she links back to the comic books is really clever. Jeremy Irons is just a hoot. As
a defender, I find myself constantly defending Jeremy Irons. I was very refreshed to find himself at home in this role.
So
completely
much fun.
Awesome.
So much fun. You did not expect so many fart scenes in this film. But it's good. Yeah, that's Watchmen. It's weird. It's fun. It is surprisingly thoughtful and meaningful. It's great. Watch it on HBO. That brings us to the end of our show.
Well, that kind of rhymed a little bit. That was quick.
I know. I'm a poet and I don't know it.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I loop back around to correct myself about The Witcher versus...
Please do.
Okay.
Oh, great.
So... This is based, these ratings are based on the demand expressions, which is this data company, Parrot Analytics.
That's on my Netflix.
No, it says it's a globally recognized standardization TV measurement unit to reflect desire, engagement, and viewership weighted by importance. So... The Witcher beat The Mandalorian only in the last week of December when it came out.
Oh, okay.
So when those two head to head for the last week of December, The Witcher,
which was The Witcher coming out with all its episodes
at once. So right, yeah. But it is the second. So then when Netflix released its ratings and popularity rankings, The Witcher was second only to Stranger Things, and it was number 1 in the UK and Australia.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So, everyone's watching it.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Where can people find you? Beth, where are you at?
Oh, I'm on Twitter. BethMarie_Marie.
Matt, how about you? Where are you at?
Tweet with me.
I'm on Twitter at MattDecember.
And I am on Twitter at Mere Christianity. And you can listen to my other show, We're Watching Here, every other Friday on Big Heads Media. Hey. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening.
Hey, thanks for checking us out.
Bye.
Go watch, man.